The movie starts off with a story called Tunnel. We meet a character named Ji-hoon, who's involved with a drug mafia. While he's driving, he gets pulled over by a policeman, prompting him to quickly hide all the illegal drugs he's carrying. The policeman asks for his car documents and ID, and he's suspicious of Ji-hoon, but ultimately lets him go. Ji-hoon is pretty shaken by this encounter but continues on his way, driving through a tunnel. In the tunnel, something strange happens. A deer suddenly appears in front of his car, and he stops to avoid hitting it. However, the deer vanishes, and he notices a handprint on the inside of his car's windshield. He tries to wipe it off but can't. To his horror, he discovers handprints on the door glass too. This unnerves him, and he quickly exits the tunnel. He stops in an isolated place and opens his car trunk, revealing a blood-soaked bag with someone's hair sticking out. Ji-hoon uses a knife to cut the hair and moves on. He re-enters the tunnel and encounters the spirit of a girl, which scares him. Despite trying to ignore her, more handprints start appearing on the windshield, terrifying him further. In frustration, he gets out of the car and starts hitting the bag with a hammer. When he opens it, he finds that the dead body is gone. Then, an electric box nearby opens, revealing the same girl's dead body. Suddenly, the lights explode, and the dead girl comes back to life. She crawls toward Ji-hoon, scaring him, and he gets into his car, but it won't start. He realizes the girl is now inside the car and she attacks him with a hammer until he dies. Now we move on to the second story, The Women in Red. We meet Soo-jin, who attended the funeral of a girl named Hyun-ju, who had taken her own life. Soo-jin isn't deeply affected by Hyun-ju's death and heads back home with her friends after the funeral. However, she spots a girl in a red dress in the parking lot of her building, who keeps staring at her. Soo-jin tries to ignore her and goes on her way. Later that evening, Soo-jin sees the same girl again in the hallway and feeling uneasy, she enters her apartment. At night, Soo-jin has a terrifying nightmare about the same girl and wakes up in fear. To comfort herself, she looks through a school photo album that includes pictures of Hyun-ju. The following day, Soo-jin encounters the mysterious woman in the parking lot again. This time, Soo-jin contemplates confronting her, but a passing car causes the girl to vanish. This strange encounter leaves Soo-jin feeling uneasy, and she confides in a friend. Through their conversation, we discover that Soo-jin didn't like Hyun-ju, but Hyun-ju always wanted to be friends with her. When Soo-jin returns home, she encounters the girl once more, this time in an elevator. Looking at her face, Soo-jin realizes that she is Hyun-ju. This frightens Soo-jin, and she attempts to escape, but she can't even enter her own apartment. Wherever she goes, Hyun-ju follows her, but eventually, Hyun-ju mysteriously disappears. Soo-jin runs out of her building to call for help, but Hyun-ju grabs her by the hair and starts climbing the building's wall, intent on taking her to the roof. In a moment of desperation, Soo-jin apologizes to Hyun-ju. We learn that Hyun-ju's death was a result of Soo-jin's relentless bullying, as Hyun-ju had only wanted to be friends with her. Hyun-ju throws Soo-jin off the building, leading to her demise. This marks the end of the story, as Hyun-ju's vengeful spirit achieves its goal. The third story, Tooth Worms, introduces us to a dentist named Chung. He examines a patient who's experiencing severe tooth pain but can't identify the cause. Chung sends the patient home, assuring him that his teeth are healthy. However, that night, Chung discovers a sink filled with water, the same sink the patient had used. When he drains the sink, he finds repulsive worms in it. Alarmed, Chung consults the patient's X-ray and discovers these strange worms in the roots of his teeth. Puzzled by this, he seeks guidance from his mentor and is advised to visit the library. There, he learns that these worms, called tooth worms, have only been found inside humans. An ancient case reveals that these worms are highly deadly and can cause a global pandemic if not stopped. When Chung returns to the clinic, the patient is back, suffering from the pain. Chung, now taking extreme precautions, attempts to remove the worms by cutting the patient's jaw. However, the worms reach the patient's eyes, and he turns into a zombie, attacking Chung and biting his neck. Chung, infected by the worms, locks himself in his office and desperately tries to save himself by cutting his gums. To his horror, he realizes that his assistant has also become a zombie. With no hope of survival, Chung succumbs to the worms, turning into a zombie himself. The fourth story, Necromancy, follows two close friends, Ji-hyun and Hyun, who make a pact that if one of them dies, the other will attempt to bring the deceased soul back through necromancy. After Hyun tragically takes her own life, Ji-hyun struggles with grief and constantly remembers the day of her friend's death. One evening, after school, Ji-hyun goes to the locker room and finds Hyun's belongings, including photos of them together and a diary containing instructions for a necromancy ritual. The diary also contains Hyun's nails and a peculiar doll. Ji-hyun decides to use these items to try to bring Hyun's soul back to life. In an attempt to bring her deceased friend, Hyun, back to life, Ji-hyun follows the ritual described in the book. During the ritual, we see a glimpse of a past memory where Ji-hyun is hurt, and Hyun starts sucking her blood, hinting at Hyun's romantic feelings for her. Following the ritual's instructions in the present, Ji-hyun sets a timer on her phone and hides. After a minute, the lights in the entire school begin to flicker, and Hyun's spirit appears, looking normal. Ji-hyun approaches her, but Hyun suddenly vanishes. Confused, Ji-hyun checks Hyun's diary and discovers that the page with the ritual instructions had been torn in half. She quickly finds the missing piece, revealing a warning that the spirit summoned may be dangerous. Hyun's demonic spirit reappears, swallows Ji-hyun, and absorbs her completely. Looking into the mirror, Hyun sees Ji-hyun's reflection, signifying their merging, and they'll be together forever. The fifth story, The Wall, introduces us to Jong, who has recently moved into a new house. However, as night falls, he begins hearing knocking sounds coming from his wall. This noise keeps him awake all night. The next day, he encounters a beautiful girl in the building's elevator, who turns out to be his neighbor. Jong suspects that the girl may have been responsible for the knocking sounds and notices that she has dropped her scarf. That night, he attempts to communicate with her by knocking on the wall, but he receives knocking responses. The following day, he meets the girl in the elevator again and tries to communicate through knocks. She finds it amusing and laughs it off. That night, the knocking sounds mysteriously stop. Jong visits the girl's apartment under the pretense of returning her scarf, only to find her door open and the apartment in disarray. He discovers a newspaper article reporting the disappearance of a couple, whose bodies have not been found. Realizing that the apartment belongs to the missing couple, Jong rushes back to his own apartment and breaks the wall from where the knocking sounds originated. The story continues as Jong discovers a hidden closet where the dead bodies of the missing couple are found. Terrified, he attempts to escape, but an unseen force suddenly grabs him and pulls him into a mysterious portal. In the sixth story, The Closet, we meet Ji-hyun, who is in search of a new closet. She finds a very affordable second-hand closet online and contacts the seller to arrange a meeting. Ji-hyun is drawn to the closet when she sees it, despite finding the owner somewhat peculiar. When the closet arrives at her house, Ji-hyun begins to experience disturbing nightmares, and every night, the closet's door opens by itself. Realizing that the closet is far from ordinary, she tries to get rid of it by hanging a bag of black pearls on it one night. However, an unseen force attacks her, causing the bag to explode, and the closet's door opens once more. Ji-hyun checks inside the closet, only to find the owner, who turns out to be a demon. She tries to defend herself with a knife, but it's ineffective, and the demon drags Ji-hyun into the closet. The seventh story, Ghost Marriage, follows Jae-hoon, who goes for a job interview with unusual questions about his birth time and name in Hanja characters. He answers correctly and gets the job. While taking a bath at home, he senses a spirit near him, even though he can't see it. The next day at work, he notices strange looks from his colleagues. Jae-hoon receives a red envelope and is shocked by its contents. Upon returning home, he discovers a food tray under his dining table, which he doesn't initially notice. Meanwhile, the company owner conducts a ritual, and the spirit haunting Jae-hoon is revealed to be the owner's deceased daughter. This spirit appears before Jae-hoon, terrifying him. Suddenly, he finds himself at a wedding hall, with the ghostly bride sitting in front of him, concluding the story. The 8th story. The Girl in the Mirror introduces Hyun-ju, who works in a cosmetic shop. She does makeup for a client who abruptly leaves without a word when asked to follow Hyun-ju on social media. Enraged by her jealousy of beautiful girls, Hyun-ju has a horrifying vision in an elevator. She attempts to take a selfie for social media, but a hand emerges from her phone, scratching her face, causing her to faint. A demonic photo of her is uploaded to social media, concluding the story. The 9th story. A Mannequin features a boy named Chan working in a warehouse that stores mannequins. He hears a creepy story from the security guard about strange, human-like mannequins. One day, Chan gets spooked by a particular mannequin, and its head moves on its own. While passing through a park, he sees an old man talking to a mannequin, which terrifies him. Research leads him to an urban myth suggesting the warehouse owner turns people into mannequins. When Chan reports his concerns to the guard, they find the mannequin from the story waiting at the warehouse door, frightening them both. Later, while passing through the park again, Chan spots the same man with the mannequin. This time, the mannequin starts to approach him, leading Chan to flee, but the mannequin pursues him. In an underground market, mannequins block his path, and the mannequin gets closer. Chan pushes it, causing it to bleed, but he soon discovers his legs stiffening, and he begins to turn into a mannequin. The man appears and claims that Chan will be a great addition to his collection. Chan is transformed entirely into a mannequin, and the story ends. Now we come to the final story titled Escape Games. It features Alexa, along with her friends Nuri and Youngmin. Alexa is a well-known social media influencer who specializes in room escape games. One day, they accept a lucrative sponsorship offer of 10 million won, but with a unique condition: they must successfully escape from a special escape room. In this mysterious room, a strange man locks them in, warning them that failing the escape will result in their souls being taken by the devil. At first, they treat it as part of the game. However, the tension rises when they encounter a hanging dead body that terrifies Alexa. They eventually realize that this is all staged and continue exploring. Nuri discovers a book of dark magic, while Alexa and Young find 2 locked doors. When Young attempts to open one of the doors, it triggers a dangerous trap with falling bookshelves that injure him. They manage to unlock the door to another room, which is filled with eerie demonic paintings, each with a button in front of them. Nuri examines a painting depicting a girl pierced by many arrows. When he presses the button, an arrow detaches and strikes the wall, causing him to realize that this escape room is unlike any other. Before he can stop his friends, Alexa accidentally presses a button and gets trapped inside a cage with Young. Above their cage, they see gruesome human body parts with dripping blood, intensifying their fear. In a moment of desperation, Nuri decides to continue the game alone and promises to return with help. However, as he enters the next room, he is horrified to find the ghostly apparitions of Alexa and Young there. He ends up standing inside a pentagram surrounded by numerous ghosts, trying to escape. But when he opens the door, a multitude of dead bodies falls on him, and a menacing demon drags him away. The screen then displays "Escape failed," and the movie concludes.